context of, newcomer communities, which, often this is focused on, we know that this goes on back home. But I think there's an added dimension that's sometimes hard for people to realize, is that sometimes the father or the brother or the family back home would never have considered this, right? So you have families where the father back home was so supportive of the females in the family, so encouraging. It's here that he starts becoming much more controlling, or you see those dynamics play out. And I think we have to recognize the trauma sometimes of migration, and particularly also, and it goes back to understanding men better and men in violence, is that men sometimes, when they're trying to assert their masculinity, often in times where it's been taken from them, right? So in the context of migration, for many men, you lose your job, you lose your status, you lose everything. So you might have been very confident back home in who you were, and you didn't need to enforce your authority on anyone because you were confident in who you were. But then here, because of dynamics of losing your job, unemployment, racism, Islamophobia, you now feel more victimized. And then unfortunately, what we see is that men sometimes, when they feel more emasculated or victimized, are actually more likely to lash out against their families to assert themselves. And that's a dynamic, again, it's not unique to any culture. It's something we see in, the research that's been done in Ontario, the Domestic Violence Death Review, where for over a number of years, they reviewed families and murder-suicide situations and situations where women were murdered in the context of domestic violence. And they often saw a man who was depressed, a man who had lost his job, a man who was somehow feeling emasculated. Often that was a risk factor towards that. So I think we need to look at that dimension as well. And we need to listen also to families, as they talk about this maybe wasn't how that person always used to be. So I think I'm not going to say that's the only reason why it's happening, but I feel that's the dynamic we need to explore a bit. And also just where are communities coming from and where are they going? What are they going through? You have communities that have come from a war situation. So already you have people who are traumatized. Those things affect how dynamics happen in a family. So I think sometimes part of the problem is that we're often not in a situation, and again, not only for newcomer communities, but also just for men in general, we don't have a lot of supports for men, mental health wise. They often won't even admit that there are those things, that they need that. So there's lack of supports in that sense that also mean that there's no way of addressing it.
The brother would act in that way because he is somewhat brainwashed.
Just if we can get our audio.
That he is somewhat brainwashed, or that the father would put a lot of blame on him if he doesn't take over that role, like, oh, this is what's gonna happen to you. So the brother feels that he needs to protect his sister, not only that they might think that it's overprotecting, but by the end of the day, they really do care. But sometimes there's other ways of going around it. Sometimes families, they don't understand it, especially the ones who have just recently immigrated to Canada, or they feel that a woman is not safe, or that more things would happen to a woman in a negative way. Mm-hmm. They feel that, like you said, women will go out wild, oh, I'm in Canada, I have so much freedom. They do say that if a woman is not, once a woman comes into the airport, if you feel that you are in a violent situation or you feel that you are abused, you have these resources. So men feel that they somewhat lost control because women are aware of their surroundings. If this happens, this is my escape, So that's why sometimes men are overprotective. They're somewhat scared that, okay, if she leaves, I'm not in control. She just walked over me. I have no pride, no dignity, nothing.